Kim Tae-ho stood in front of the huge crystal doors of the Galactic Council building. His black suit was clean and pressed, but his hands were shaking just a little. He had traveled through space for 3 whole months to get here. The journey had been long and difficult, but now he was finally at the most important place in the galaxy. Behind him, Park So-young held her tablet computer very tightly. Her fingers were white from gripping it so hard. She was young, and this was her first big mission. But she knew how important today was for all humans on Earth. They had come here to ask the galaxy to accept humans as equals, but already things felt wrong. The message they got yesterday was not good. The Galactic Council would only give them 10 minutes to speak, 10 minutes to explain why humans deserve to be part of the galactic community. It felt like an insult, but they had no choice. They had to try. The doors opened with a sound like thunder. The room inside was so big that Tae-ho could not see the walls. The ceiling went up so high it disappeared in darkness. Floating lights moved around like stars, and the air smelled like metal and ozone. Everything was designed to make visitors feel small and unimportant. Hundreds of alien beings filled the giant room. The Veltari floated in their biosuits, looking like jellyfish made of light. Their tentacles moved in ways that showed they did not like what they saw. The Kragan looked like living mountains made of rock when they moved. The floor shook under their weight. Their red eyes glowed like fire in the dim light. At the center of everything sat the Council of Five. These were the most powerful beings in known space. Each one represented billions of creatures across the galaxy. Council Prime was the strangest of all. It looked like a crystal filled with swirling energy that changed colors from blue to white to gold. Its voice did not come through the air but went straight into their minds like cold water. The other council members were just as impressive. The Zephyrian delegate looked like a giant insect with wings that sparkled like diamonds. Its compound eyes reflected the light in thousands of tiny rainbows. The Nixari representative was a cloud of gas held together by invisible forces that crackled with electricity. Every few seconds lightning would flash inside its form. Council Prime began to speak without moving any part of its crystal body. The voice echoed inside Tae-ho and So-young heads, making them feel dizzy. Humans of the planet Earth, you have requested membership in our Galactic Council. We have studied your species for many years. We have seen your wars, your destruction of your own planet, your primitive technology. Tell us, why should we allow such a violent and backward race into our civilized galaxy? The words hit Tae-ho like a physical blow. Violent, backward, primitive. These were not the words of beings willing to listen with open minds, but he had trained for this moment his whole life. He stepped forward and kept his voice calm and steady. Honored members of the Council, we thank you for this opportunity. Humanity has grown beyond our troubled past. Yes, we made mistakes, but we learn from them. We offer the galaxy new ideas, fast innovation, and a spirit that never gives up. Our recent work in quantum science and medical healing could help all the species here. Today, a sound like rocks grinding together came from the Kragan representative. It took Tae-ho a moment to realize it was laughter. The sound was not pleasant. Cooperation. You speak of cooperation, but your own species cannot even cooperate with itself. You still have wars on your home planet, do you not? So-young spoke up, her voice stronger than she felt. Respected council member, yes, we still have some small conflicts, but nothing like the terrible wars of our past. We have reduced fighting on Earth by 90% in the last 100 years. The Zephyrian clicked its mouth parts together in a dismissive way. The sound was sharp and cutting. 90% of almost nothing is still nothing. Your technology is hundreds of years behind ours. Your lifespans are pathetically short. Your bodies are weak and need constant care. What could you possibly offer us that we cannot do ourselves in much less time? The energy being that was Council Prime pulsed brighter, its colors shifting to angry reds and oranges. Furthermore, your species shows dangerous emotional problems. You act on feelings rather than logic. You form attachments that cloud your judgment. These traits make you unsuitable for the responsibility of galactic citizenship. Tae-ho felt his training fighting against his human pride. Every word they spoke was designed to make him angry, to make him prove their point about human emotions. But he would not give them that satisfaction. Respected council, our emotions are not weaknesses. They drive us to protect others, to create new solutions under pressure, to never surrender. When facing impossible challenges, these qualities helped us survive and grow strong on a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. Survive, the Veltari translator made a sound like acid bubbling. The alien floated higher, showing its disgust. You barely escaped total destruction 12 times in your recorded history. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, ice ages. Deadly diseases and your own weapons nearly wiped you out again and again. A truly advanced species would have prevented such disasters or died from them, Tejo replied quietly. We survived because we adapted, because we refused to give up, because we protected each other even when everything seemed hopeless. We learned to work together when the world itself was our enemy. The Council Prime form grew darker, its crystal structure seeming to absorb light rather than give it off. Enough, we have heard your request. The Council decision is unanimous. Humanity is denied membership. Your species lacks the maturity, the stability, and the technological advancement required for galactic citizenship. You will return to your isolated solar system and may try again in 500 years. Assuming your species survives. That long, so young tablet cracked in her hands as she gripped it too hard. 500 years, that is nearly 20 human generations. Perhaps by then you will have evolved beyond your primitive emotional responses. Zephyrian clicked coldly. Guards escort these creatures back to their vessel. Massive security robots approached them, floating silently through the air. Their red scanning beams swept over the two humans like they were dangerous animals that needed watching. Tejo straightened his shoulders and looked directly at Council Prime. We came here in peace, offering friendship and cooperation. We leave with our dignity whole and our determination stronger than ever. The Council may have rejected us today, but humanity's story is far from finished. The crystal doors sealed behind them with a sound like thunder that seemed to shake the entire building. The corridor outside was empty and cold, leaving the two humans alone with their crushing disappointment. So Young finally let her professional mask slip away. Ambassador, they did not just reject us, they insulted everything we are, everything we have achieved, everything our ancestors died to build. Tejo nodded as they walked toward their ship parked in the distant spaceport. Yes, they did, and they have no idea what they have just awakened. The Council thinks they have seen the last of humanity. They could not be more wrong. His voice carried a promise that made So Young look at him with new eyes. The quiet diplomat was gone, replaced by something harder and more determined. The galaxy had made its choice, now humanity would make theirs. The trip back to Earth took 3 months, but the message Kim Tae-ho sent ahead traveled much faster through quantum communication networks. By the time their ship entered Earth's solar system, the entire planet was buzzing with anger and determination. The Council rejection and insults had been broadcast on every network, translated into every language and discussed in every corner of human civilization. President Lee Ae-yoon stood in the United Earth Assembly, her face grim as she addressed representatives from every nation and orbital colony. The massive hall fell silent as she began to speak. Citizens of Earth, our ambassadors were not just rejected by the Galactic Council. They were mocked, dismissed as primitive and emotional, told we were unworthy of even basic recognition. The murmur that ran through the assembly was like distant thunder. Representative Wang Minjun from the Asian Federation stood up. Madame President, what exactly did they say about us? Daeun voice hardened. They called us backwards. They said our emotions make us unfit for galactic citizenship. They claimed our short lifespans and physical weakness made us irrelevant. They laughed at our survival instincts and called our greatest achievements worthless. The silence that followed was deafening. Then slowly one person began to clap, then another. Soon the entire assembly was on their feet, applauding, not in celebration but in defiant unity. The sound was like thunder rolling across mountains. Dar Troy Hyun-soo, Earth leading quantum physicist, stepped to the podium. His usual quiet manner was replaced by something much more intense. They think our emotions make us weak. Our emotions are what drove us to split the atom, to cure cancer, to reach for the stars when everyone said it was impossible. Our emotions are what make us fight for each other when logic says we should give up. In the orbital shipyards above Earth, Admiral Park Ji-hoon was already mobilizing resources, the massive construction platforms that had been building peaceful exploration vessels were rapidly retooling if the galaxy would not accept humanity friendship. They would have to earn respect through strength. How long until we can have a real fleet? He asked his chief engineer, Commander Yu Sujin, with the new quantum fabrication systems. 6 months for the first wave, 18 months for full deployment. But Admiral, we are talking about building warships, not exploration vessels. Ji-hoon stared out at the stars where the council worlds lay hidden in the darkness. They made that choice for us, Commander. They want to see what humans do when we are angry. They are about to find out. Meanwhile, in the underground research facilities beneath Seoul, a different kind of preparation was underway. Dr. Kim So-min had been working on theoretical weapons based on humanity, unique understanding of chaos mathematics and emotional resonance. The council species prided themselves on logic and order, but humans had learned to thrive in chaos. The psychological warfare protocols are almost complete, she reported to her team. If they think our emotions are a weakness, wait until they see what happens when we weaponize them. Her assistant Dr. Lim Jae-won looked uncomfortable. So-min, are we really going to war with the entire galaxy? She turned from her calculations, her eyes blazing with the same fire that had driven humans to survive ice ages and build civilizations. They did not leave us a choice, Jae-won. They could have said no politely. They could have suggested we try again later. Instead, they chose to humiliate us, to mock everything we are. Now they get to learn why predators do not corner prey animals. Across the planet, similar scenes were playing out. The insult to humanity had awakened something primal and powerful, not just anger, but the deep human need to prove doubters wrong. Every university, every research facility, every military installation was suddenly working with a focused intensity that amazed even longtime observers of human behavior. In New Tokyo, the cybernetics division was working around the clock to create human-machine interfaces that would give their pilots advantages no alien could match. In Cairo, the bioweapons lab was developing psychological viruses that could disrupt alien mental processes. In Moscow, the theoretical physics department was exploring ways to weaponize human unpredictability itself. Ambassador Taeho, finally back on Earth, stood in his office, looking out at the lights of New Geneva. His aide So-young entered with fresh intelligence reports. Ambassador, the council is already dismissing us again. Their intelligence networks think we are just making angry noise that will die down in a few months. Taeho smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Let them think that they have made the classic mistake of underestimating a species they do not understand. They see our emotions as chaos, but they do not realize that chaos is just another word for adaptability. What happens now? So-young asked. Now we show them what humans do when someone insults not just us, but our children, our future, and our right to exist among the stars. They wanted to see our primitive emotions. They are about to witness the most dangerous emotion humans possess, which is determination. All across Earth, humanity was mobilizing in ways that had not been seen since the great wars of the 20th century. But this was different. This was not nation fighting nation. This was the entire human species united by a single purpose: to prove that they deserved respect, to show the galaxy that dismissing humanity was the greatest mistake they could have made. In the deep space monitoring stations, scientists tracked every signal from council worlds. They analyzed alien communication patterns, studied their technological signatures, and mapped their weaknesses. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that had barely escaped their own solar system. They had no idea that humans had been quietly studying them for decades. The shipyards worked day and night. The sound of construction echoed across the orbital platforms as humanity finest engineers designed vessels unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These would not be copies of alien technology. These would be purely human creations born from human ingenuity and human determination. Dr. So-min team made breakthrough after breakthrough. Their psychological warfare systems could target the specific mental weaknesses of each alien species. The Veltari shared consciousness could be disrupted. The Kragan rigid thinking patterns could be scrambled. The Zephyrian hive minds could be fractured into individual components. But the most important work was happening in the hearts and minds of ordinary humans. The council had not just rejected their government. They had rejected every human who had ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of walking among them. They had rejected every scientist who had dedicated their life to Pushing the boundaries of knowledge, they had rejected every artist who had tried to capture the beauty of the universe. The fire that burned in human hearts was not the fire of destruction, it was the fire of creation, the fire that had driven humans. To paint on cave walls, to build pyramids, to compose symphonies, to reach for the moon when it seemed impossible. The council had awakened that fire, and now it would reshape the galaxy. Admiral Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of the first completed warship, the UES Determination, and looked out at the growing fleet around him. His crew worked with quiet efficiency. These were not just soldiers. These were teachers and doctors and engineers and artists who had volunteered to show the galaxy what humanity could accomplish when they were united by a common cause. The ship itself was a work of art as much as a weapon. Its hull was inscribed with poetry in 100 human languages. Its corridors displayed paintings and sculptures created by the greatest artists of Earth. Its computers sang with music that represented the best of human culture. This was not just a warship. This was humanity itself given form and purpose. 6 months after the Council rejection, the first human battle fleet was ready. It consisted of 200 ships, each one unique, each one carrying a piece of human soul into the void. The crews were volunteers from every nation, every culture, every walk of life. They were united not by government orders, but by shared determination. To prove their worth, the galaxy thought it had seen the last of humanity when it rejected their peaceful overture. The galaxy was wrong, humanity was coming, and they were bringing fire. 2 years passed, and the galaxy continued as it always had. The council species went about their business, occasionally mentioning the human tantrum as an amusing footnote. Their intelligence services reported increased activity in the Sol system. But nothing that seemed threatening. After all, what could a primitive species possibly do to affect the established order of galactic civilization on the Council world of Nexus Prime? The crystalline being that served as Council Prime was reviewing reports with casual interest. The humans had apparently built some ships and were conducting military exercises. How quaint it was, like watching children play war games with wooden swords. Have they attempted to contact us again? It asked its aide. A floating biomechanical construct. No prime. Complete radio silence for 18 months. Our long-range sensors show they have built approximately 200 vessels of unknown configuration, but they remain within their home system. Amusing, they are probably trying to impress us with their little fleet. When they realize how futile their efforts are, they will come crawling back, properly humbled. The aid sensors flickered uncertainly. Prime, there are some unusual readings from their system. Energy signatures. We do not recognize gravitational anomalies that do not match any known technology. Council Prime. Crystalline form pulsed with what might have been laughter. Unknown to us, impossible. We have had faster than light travel for over 10,000 years. There is nothing a species that just invented basic fusion could surprise us with. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, Admiral Park Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of humanity's first true warship, the UES Determination. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, running final checks on systems that did not exist in any galactic database. Quantum tunnel drive is stable, reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Commander Shin Yuri. We can reach any point in the galaxy within hours instead of months. Emotional resonance weapons are online added. Weapons Officer Captain Han Dong-min. The psychological warfare suites are ready for deployment. Ji-hoon nodded. They had taken the Council's greatest strength and turned it into a weakness. The galaxy ruling species were all telepathic or empathic to some degree. It made them efficient at communication and cooperation. It also made them vulnerable to the right kind of mental interference and the chaos mathematics engines. Ji-hoon asked Chief Engineer Commander Yu Soo-jin, smiled grimly. Online and ready. The Council species think in straight lines, logical progressions, predictable patterns. Our new systems introduce pure chaos into their decision-making processes. They will not be able to predict what we will do because we will not decide until the moment we act. Dr. Kim So-min had outdone herself. Human unpredictability, long seen as a flaw, had been transformed into humanity's greatest weapon while other species planned elaborate strategies and followed logical protocols. Humans could adapt, improvise, and react in ways that defied prediction. The human ships themselves were marvels of adaptive engineering. No two were exactly alike. Each captain had been given basic specifications and told to modify their vessel according to their own tactical preferences. The result was a fleet that looked like organized chaos. 200 ships that moved like a school of fish, each one different, but all working toward the same goal, sir, called Communications Officer Lee Haijin. We are receiving final authorization from Earth. Command Ji-hoon took a deep breath. Around him, the bridge crew waited. These were not just military personnel, they were teachers, artists, engineers, parents. They were humans who had been told they were not good enough for the galaxy, and they were about to prove how wrong that assessment was. Open a channel to all ships, he commanded. Channel open, sir, to the crews of the Human Defense Fleet. Ji-hoon began, his voice carrying across 200 vessels scattered throughout the solar system. 2 years ago, the Galactic Council did not just reject our membership, they insulted our very existence. They called us primitive, emotional, and weak. They laughed at our survival instincts and dismissed our achievements. He paused, letting his words sink in. Today we begin our response. Not with conquest, not with destruction, but with a demonstration. We are going to show them what humans do when we are underestimated. We are going to prove that our emotions are not weaknesses, but strengths. We are going to teach them that dismissing humanity was the greatest mistake they ever made. Across the fleet, crews straightened at their stations. This was not about revenge, it was about recognition. It was about earning a place in the galaxy through deeds rather than diplomacy. All ships prepare for quantum tunnel jump. Our first stop is the Veltari homeworld. They wanted to see how primitive humans handle adversity. They are about to get a front row seat. 10. The depths of space reality began to bend as human science created tunnels through the fabric of space-time itself. The Council 3-month journey would become a 3-hour trip there. Careful plans and logical responses would crumble against human unpredictability and adaptation. The human fleet had spent 2 years preparing not just their ships, but their minds. They had studied every piece of information about the Council species. They knew their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears, and their blind spots. They had learned that the aliens' greatest advantage was also their greatest vulnerability. The Council species had evolved beyond individual thinking. They worked as collectives. Hive minds, shared consciousness. They were efficient, logical, and predictable, but they had forgotten how to deal with true chaos, how to respond when faced with something completely unexpected. Jump in T-minus 60 seconds, announced Yuri Ji-hoon. Looked out at the stars, knowing that in a few hours the galaxy would never be the same. They called us emotional and primitive. Let us show them what human emotions can accomplish when properly motivated. The countdown reached 0 and 200. Human warships vanished from the Sol system, leaving only empty space and the promise of change. Reality twisted around them as they traveled through quantum tunnels that should not have existed, moving faster than light in ways that defied galactic understanding. On Nexus, Prime Council Prime was reviewing routine reports when its aides suddenly began flashing urgent warning signals. Prime, we have lost contact with our monitoring stations in the Sol system. Lost contact? What do you mean? The stations have simply stopped transmitting. No distress signals, no indication of malfunction. They just went silent. Council Prime, crystalline form, flickered with concern. How many stations? All of them, Prime. Every monitoring post, every spy satellite, every deep space probe in the human system has gone dark for the first time in millennia. Council Prime felt something it had not experienced since its species achieved perfect order. It felt uncertainty, fear. The humans had been quiet for 2 years, too quiet, and now they were gone. Alert all Council fleets. Council Prime commanded increased security around all member worlds. Something is happening, and I do not think we are going to like it. It was already too late. The human fleet was moving through quantum space, carrying with them the fire of determination and the promise of change. The galaxy had rejected them, mocked them, dismissed them as unworthy. Now they would learn what humanity could accomplish when they were truly motivated. The quiet time was over. The storm was about to begin. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Veltari homeworld defense satellites simply stopped working. Not destroyed, not damaged, just stopped. Their sophisticated AI systems began displaying random poetry in ancient human languages. Their weapons platforms started playing Earth music at maximum volume. Their communication arrays broadcast recipes for kimchi and instructions for traditional Korean folk dances. Admiral Park Ji-hoon watched from the bridge of the UES Determination. as chaos blossomed across the Veltari fleet. Their bioships, normally coordinated through telepathic links, were suddenly receiving conflicting emotional signals the human psychological warfare systems had introduced. Pure confusion into their shared consciousness. Sir, the Veltari are attempting to communicate, reported. Communications Officer Lee Hai-jin put them through the main screen, flickered to show a writhing mass of tentacles in a biosuit. The Veltari commander translator was producing panic sounds. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves immediately. What have you done to our systems? Ji-hoon smiled calmly. This is Admiral Park Ji-hoon of the Human Defense Fleet. We are the primitive emotional species you found so amusing 2 years ago. We are here to deliver a message. The Veltari tentacles writhed faster. Impossible. Your ships appeared from nowhere. Our sensors cannot track your movements. That is because you think in straight lines. Ji-hoon replied. You plan, you predict, you follow logical patterns. We learn to survive by being unpredictable. Your defensive systems are designed to counter known technologies and familiar tactics. We are using neither. On the tactical display, the 200 human ships moved like a school of fish, constantly shifting formation in patterns that followed no logical sequence. The Veltari defense fleet was trying to target them but could not predict where they would be from moment to moment. What do you want? The Veltari commander demanded. Your attention. Ji-hoon said simply. You dismissed us as unworthy of basic respect. You called our survival instincts amusing. Now you get to experience those instincts firsthand across the Veltari homeworld. The effects of human psychological warfare were spreading. Their entire civilization was based on shared telepathic experience, but the human systems were introducing chaos into that shared space. Citizens were experiencing random human emotions, memories, and dreams. The ordered Veltari society was suddenly flooded with human concepts like individual determination, irrational hope, and stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Make it stop, the commander pleaded. Our people are going mad. They are not going mad, Ji-hoon corrected. They are experiencing what it is like to be human. The emotions you called primitive and chaotic are what drove us to reach the stars despite every obstacle. Your people are getting a taste of what real determination feels like. The same scene was playing out across 12 different worlds simultaneously. The Kragan found their rock-solid formations crumbling as human chaos mathematics introduced randomness into their perfectly ordered society. The Zephyrian hive minds were fracturing as individual consciousness began asserting itself through human emotional broadcasts on Nexus Prime. Council Prime was receiving frantic reports from across its territory, the crystalline being pulsed with angry light as it processed the impossible information. How are they doing this? It demanded of its military advisors. Their technology is primitive. Their ships are inferior to ours. Unknown Prime responded. Admiral Qualex, a veteran of a dozen galactic conflicts. Their vessels appear to use some form of instantaneous travel. We have never encountered. Their weapons are not causing physical damage, but are somehow disrupting our mental processes. Our people are experiencing emotions they have never felt before. Emotions. Our Chaos Council Prime blazed brighter. How are they weaponizing chaos on the human flagship? Dr. Kim Somin monitored the psychological warfare systems with grim satisfaction. They spent 10,000 years eliminating unpredictability from their society. She explained to her team. They bred out emotional instability, random behavior, irrational decision-making. They created perfect logical civilizations and that made them vulnerable, added Dr. Lim. J1 understanding dawning in his voice. Exactly. They cannot cope with true randomness because they have never experienced it. Our systems are introducing pure chaos into their ordered minds. They are not used to dealing with situations that do not follow logical patterns. The human fleet moved like a force of nature, striking 12 worlds simultaneously, demonstrating capabilities that defied galactic understanding. They were not conquering or destroying, they were teaching. Every action showed the Council species what they had dismissed and underestimated. Human ships would appear without warning, deploy their psychological warfare systems, and disappear before the alien fleets could respond. It was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a lesson in humility delivered by a species that had been called primitive. And an emotional. On the bridge of the Determination Tactical Officer Commander Park Min-ho reported successful operations across all fronts. Sir, all targets are responding to our demonstrations. The Veltari are requesting immediate cessation of psychological operations. The Kragan are offering to negotiate. The Zephyrians they are screaming, but it is organized screaming which is apparently progress for them. The human demonstration was precise and controlled. They were not trying to destroy these civilizations. They were trying to teach them what they had overlooked when they dismissed humanity. The emotional chaos they were experiencing was not random, it was purposeful. It was showing them parts of themselves they had forgotten existed. Phase 1 complete. Ji-hoon announced all ships prepare for withdrawal to Rally Point Alpha. It is time for Phase 2. As suddenly as they had appeared, the human ships vanished, leaving behind 12 confused and shaken worlds. The council species were left to contemplate a new reality. The primitive emotional humans were not just capable of reaching the stars, they were capable of reaching anywhere they wanted, anytime they wanted, in ways no one could predict or prevent. The effects of the human psychological warfare lingered long after the ships departed. Veltari citizens continued to experience individual thoughts and emotions. Kragan collectives found themselves questioning orders and making independent decisions. Zephyrian hive minds discovered the strange pleasure of disagreement and debate. On Nexus, Prime Council Prime gathered its military advisors for an emergency meeting. The crystalline being had lost its usual perfect composure. Its light patterns were erratic, confused. They struck 12 major worlds simultaneously, it said, without warning, without declaration of war, without even making demands. They demonstrated capabilities we did not know existed, then vanished before we could respond. What do they want? Admiral Colex asked. That is the terrifying part, Council Prime replied. I do not think they want anything traditional. They are not trying to conquer territory or steal resources. They are trying to prove a point, and they are succeeding. The galaxy balance of power had shifted. In a single day, the species that had ruled for millennia were beginning to realize they might have made a terrible mistake. The humans they had dismissed as primitive and emotional had just demonstrated that those very traits made them more dangerous than any enemy the Council had ever faced. The galaxy was burning not with the fire of destruction, but with the fire of change, and the humans were just getting started. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in its 10,000-year history. Representatives from dozens of species filled the great chamber, but instead of the usual calm deliberation, there was barely controlled panic. The humans had struck 12 major worlds, simultaneously demonstrated impossible technology, and vanished without a trace, leaving behind only chaos and confusion. Council Prime crystalline form flickered with unstable energy as it addressed the assembly. The situation is unprecedented. The humans have capabilities we do not understand and are using them in ways that defy all military doctrine. The Veltari representative writhed in its biosuit, its translator producing sounds of distress. Our entire homeworld is still recovering from their psychological assault. Our people are experiencing individual thoughts for the first time in millennia. Our society is fragmenting. At least your people are still functional, clicked the Zephyrian delegate. Our hive minds have been shattered. We have individual Zephyrians making independent decisions without consulting the collective. It is chaos. Admiral Qualex stepped forward, his usually perfect military bearing shaken. Council Prime, I have been analyzing their tactics. They are not following any known strategic principles. They strike without warning, achieve objectives we cannot identify, and withdraw before we can respond. It is as if they are playing by completely different rules. What rules demanded? The Kragan representative, its massive stone form radiating confusion. They have no rules. They appear anywhere, do anything, then vanish. How do we fight an enemy that refuses to be predictable? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud for 10,000 years. Galactic warfare had followed established patterns. Fleets moved in formation, battles were fought along logical lines. Victories were achieved through superior technology and tactical planning. The humans had thrown all of that out and replaced it with something the council species could not comprehend. Pure adaptability. Perhaps, suggested a smaller species representative. We should consider what they actually want. They have not destroyed anything, have not conquered territory, have not made demands. Council Prime light dimmed. They want recognition. They want us to admit we were wrong about them. If we do, asked the Veltarathan, we admit that our entire understanding of civilization is flawed, Council Prime, replied we. Built our society on logic, order, predictability, they are proving that chaos and emotion can be just as powerful. Meanwhile, in deep space, the human fleet had regrouped at a hidden base in an asteroid field. Admiral Ji-hoon met with his senior staff to plan their next move. The first phase had been about getting attention. The second phase would be about getting respect. Intelligence reports that the council is in emergency session, reported Commander Shin Yuri. Their entire fleet is mobilizing, but they do not know where to deploy it. Good, Ji-hoon replied. Phase 2 will hit them where they never expected. Dr. Kim, are the cultural warfare systems ready? Dr. Kim So-min nodded grimly. We are not just going to disrupt their military capabilities. This time we are going to introduce human culture directly into their societies: music, art, literature, philosophy, the whole spectrum of human emotional expression. That seems almost cruel, observed Dr. Lim Jae-won. Called our emotions primitive. So-min replied, let them experience what those emotions can create. Let them discover what they have been missing by eliminating unpredictability from their lives. Back on Nexus Prime, Council Prime was receiving reports that made its crystalline structure shake with fear. They are not just attacking our military targets, they are broadcasting directly into our population centers. Our people are being exposed to human art, human music, human stories. What is the effect? Asked Admiral Quelixur. Citizens are changing. They are questioning established order. They are expressing individual preferences. They are creating new art forms based on human concepts of beauty and chaos. The irony was devastating. The council had rejected humanity for being too emotional, too chaotic, too unpredictable. Now their own people were discovering that emotions were not weaknesses but sources of incredible creative power. Human music was inspiring new forms of expression across dozens of worlds. Human art was showing alien minds new ways of seeing reality. Human stories of hope, determination, and love were awakening feelings that had been suppressed for millennia. Sir, called the aid construct, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. Admiral Ji-hoon image appeared on the main screen behind him. The bridge of the determination buzzed with quiet activity. Council Prime, I'm sure you are wondering what our next move will be. What do you want? Council Prime demanded. The same thing we wanted 2 years ago: recognition, respect. A place at the table where decisions about the galaxy future are made. You are trying to destroy our civilization. Ji-hoon shook his head. We are trying to improve it. Your people are discovering parts of themselves they never knew existed. They are learning that order and chaos can coexist, that logic and emotion can strengthen each other instead of being in opposition. You are introducing instability into systems that have worked for 10,000 years, systems that stagnated 10,000 years ago. Ji-hoon corrected. When was the last time any of your species made a major breakthrough in science, art, or philosophy? When did you last surprise yourselves with what you could accomplish? The question struck home. The council species had achieved perfect order by eliminating the very forces that drove progress and growth. Your choice is simple, Ji-hoon continued. Accept that humanity deserves a voice in galactic affairs, or watch as your own people discover what you have been denying them for millennia. Either way, the galaxy is changing. The only question is whether you will be part of that change or a victim of it. The transmission ended, leaving the council to contemplate an impossible choice: admit they were wrong about humanity, or watch their perfect order crumble from within. Across the galaxy, the effects of human cultural warfare were spreading like wildfire. Veltari were creating individual art for the first time in their history. Kragan were writing poetry that celebrated both strength and beauty. Zephyrians were discovering the joy of personal expression within collective harmony. The rigid structures that had maintained galactic order for millennia were bending under the pressure of human creativity. The aliens were not losing their identities, they were expanding them. They were becoming more than they had ever imagined possible. On a dozen worlds, protests were breaking out, not violent, destructive protests, but celebrations of newfound freedom. Citizens who had never questioned authority were demanding answers. Citizens who had never expressed individual preferences were creating art, music, and literature that reflected their unique perspectives. The council tried to suppress these movements but found that their own security forces had been affected by human cultural broadcasts. Guards who had never experienced doubt were questioning orders. Scientists who had never challenged established theory were proposing radical new ideas. Artists who had never created anything original were producing works that defied all previous conventions. Council Prime realized with growing horror that the humans had achieved something impossible. They had weaponized creativity. They had turned chaos into a force for positive change. They had proven that emotions were not weaknesses, but sources of incredible power. The crystalline being that had ruled the galaxy for centuries found itself faced with a choice that would define the future of galactic civilization: resist the change and watch their perfect order collapse, or embrace it and discover what they might become. The galaxy was burning with the fire of human determination, and there was no putting it out. 6 months later, Ambassador Kim Tae-ho once again stood before the Galactic Council chambers, but this time everything was different. The massive crystal doors opened not to a chamber filled with dismissive alien beings, but to a space buzzing with energy and activity. Veltari were engaged in animated discussions with their tentacles waving expressively. Kragan were actually laughing, their stone forms shaking with previously unknown mirth. Zephyrians moved as individuals rather than in perfect collective formation. At the center, Council Prime crystalline form pulsed with colors that had not been seen in millennia, patterns of light that spoke of curiosity rather than rigid authority. Ambassador Tae-ho, Council Prime, said, its mental voice carrying tones of something almost like humility. Welcome back to the Galactic Council. We have much to discuss. Beside him, Park So-young carried herself with new confidence. The galaxy had changed, and so had they. They were no longer supplicants begging for acceptance, but equals bringing gifts of perspective and possibility. Thank you, Council Prime. Tae-ho replied, we are pleased to be here. The past months have been educational. Council Prime continued, your people intervention has awakened aspects of our civilizations we had forgotten existed. Our populations are creating art, music, and literature at levels not seen for thousands of years. They are asking questions, exploring possibilities, and discovering joy in the unexpected. The Veltari representative translator produced sounds that were almost musical. My people are experiencing individual creativity for the first time in our recorded history. We had thought such chaos would destroy us, but instead it has made us more than we ever imagined we could. Beatty Kragan collectives are reporting unprecedented innovation. Added the stone being delegate, our engineers are designing structures that are both functional and beautiful. Our philosophers are exploring concepts of individual purpose within collective strength. It is refreshing. Even the Zephyrian delegates seem different, its movements less rigid, more expressive. The hive minds have not shattered as we feared. Instead, they have become richer, more complex. Individual voices strengthen the collective rather than weakening it. Admiral Park Ji-hoon, now serving as humanity military liaison, watched from the observer gallery with satisfaction. The show of force had been necessary, but the real victory was what came after. Humans had not conquered the galaxy, they had liberated it from its own rigid perfection. Dar Kim So-min, recently appointed as Earth's first galactic cultural exchange director, was already working with alien scientists to explore how emotion and logic could enhance each other. Dr. Lim Jae-won was collaborating with Veltari biotechnicians to develop new forms of art that combined human emotional expression with alien sensory capabilities. The question now, Council Prime said to Tae-ho, is not whether humanity deserves membership in the Galactic Council. The question is what role you will play in leading the galaxy into a new era of growth and discovery. Tae-ho smiled, remembering the insults and dismissals of 2 years earlier. We do not seek to lead Council Prime, we seek to participate, to contribute, to help build something better than what any of us could achieve alone. Your emotional instability, the former weakness that the Council had mocked, has proven to be the catalyst our civilizations needed to break free from stagnation, not instability. So-young corrected gently, adaptability, the ability to change, to grow, to become something new when circumstances require it. The ceremony that followed was unlike any in galactic history. Instead of formal pronouncements and rigid protocols, it was a celebration of diversity and possibility. Human musicians played alongside Veltari bioacoustic artists. Kragan engineers shared designs with human architects. Zephyrian collective poetry blended with human individual expression to create entirely New art forms. President Lee Dae-yoon, attending virtually from Earth, addressed the assembly. When humanity first reached for the stars, we did so not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we refused to accept limitations. Today, we offer that same stubborn determination to refuse limitations to all the peoples of the galaxy. As the celebration continued, Admiral Ji-hoon found himself in conversation with Admiral Quillex, the military leader who had once seen humans as an impossible puzzle to solve. "I have studied warfare for 3 centuries, Quillex admitted. "I thought I understood all possible strategies and tactics. Your people taught me that the greatest weapon is the willingness to change everything about how you approach a problem. We call it thinking outside the box," Ji-hoon replied. "Though I suppose in your case it would be thinking outside the geometrically perfect military formation." Quillex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Indeed, we are redesigning our entire military doctrine based on human concepts of flexibility and adaptation." The transformation was not just military or political, it was spiritual. Species that had spent millennia in perfectly ordered societies were rediscovering the joy of surprise, the thrill of uncertainty, the beauty of imperfection. They were learning that growth required not the elimination of chaos, but the integration of order and disorder into something greater than either could achieve alone. As the ceremonies concluded and the various delegates began to depart, Council Prime approached Taeho one final time. "Ambassador, I must ask, was all of this planned? The demonstrations, the cultural interventions, the awakening of our populations to new possibilities?" Taeho considered the question carefully. "Council Prime, when you insulted humanity 2 years ago, you awakened something in us that we did not fully understand ourselves. We knew we had to respond, but we did not know exactly how that response would unfold. We adapted, we improvised, we let our determination guide us toward solutions we could not have planned in advance. So you did not know what would happen. We knew something would happen. We knew it would be unprecedented because humans specialize in the unprecedented, but the specific details, those emerged from the interaction between human determination and galactic circumstances. It was jazz, not symphony." Council Prime crystalline form pulsed with new patterns of light. Jazz, a human musical form based on improvisation within structure. Everyone knows the basic framework, but what emerges is unique to that moment, that group of musicians, that particular combination of influences and inspiration. Fascinating. It seems we have much to learn about living with productive uncertainty. As the UES determination prepared to depart Nexus Prime. Now, as part of a joint galactic fleet, rather than a weapon of demonstration, Taeho looked out at the stars with new eyes. The galaxy was no longer a cold, distant place that judged humanity unworthy. It was home, full of friends and allies and endless possibilities for growth and discovery. The Council had insulted humanity, calling them primitive and emotional. In response, Earth had set the galaxy ablaze, not with destruction, but with the fire of human determination, creativity, and refusal to accept defeat. The flames had burned away stagnation and rigid order, leaving room for something better to grow. The galaxy would never be the same, and that Taeho thought as he watched alien and human crews working together on the ships around them was exactly the point.